Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Anne. This is Whole Wellness with Anne, and I do apologize in advance for the appearance of my shirt. I am in my studio this evening and I have been painting and I'm consequently wearing my nasty clothes. And so, welcome. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate your time. We are in the middle of a series on boys, the boys of my past, which I know sounds dramatic. There's a reason we're doing this little series. It's a follow-up to the abuse series that I uploaded a couple months ago. And the reason we're doing this series is hopefully to demonstrate what can happen to young women when they have an absent father. And in the first couple of videos we dropped for this little series, we discussed what it means to have an absent father. And then we got into like my adolescent years and puberty, like starting out with junior high and on to into high school. We finished out high school and we started into college, and now in this video number 8, we're going to be talking about my sophomore year in college. I had been burned in high school several times by different boys. I had made foolish decisions and had pursued boys foolishly. You can go back and watch the first 7 videos of this series to kind of get the background, but today we're launching in with the summer between my freshman and sophomore year in college. And I had mentioned that my 3 roommates, my freshman year, we finally got to the point by the end of freshman year where we had developed a bit of a friendship between the 3 of us. And we decided that we would room together our sophomore year in college. And so we moved to the other side of campus, a little bit closer to, quite a bit closer to the social hub of the university. And I landed on campus my sophomore year, and you know, the relationships developed and we started meeting new people. But the first or second day I was there, before classes started, somebody came knocking on my dorm room door, and the other 3 girls were gone. And this guy came down the hall and knocked on our door, and he said, "Hey, we're playing volleyball down in the courtyard. You want to come play?" And I remember, and this is part of the reason why I'm doing this series, right, is because I want to explain how I felt at that time as a young woman developing into a woman, and where my head was at and how skewed my thinking was. I remember thinking, oh, that boy wants me personally, even though he didn't know me, to join in this activity. He's paying me attention. I'll go. Now keep in mind, I'm this person who does not like sports, does not like competition. I didn't even ask what was going on or who's involved. It was hot outside. It made no sense whatsoever why I would jump up and join. But I followed him down to the courtyard where everybody was gathered, and there was a big group of people from both of the dorms. And as we were walking down, we had a little bit of a conversation, and he introduced himself and I introduced myself. His name was Pedro. He was super nice. So we get down there and we played volleyball, this group of people, and I, of course, was not enjoying it at all because I hate sports. I was only playing volleyball because he invited me and I liked him paying attention to me. And I thought if I said no, I would look like a doofus. Or if I had said I don't like sports, or, you know, I don't like competition, or I'll come down and watch, but I don't want to play. I didn't even say I don't want to play. I'll watch or cheer or keep score or referee or whatever. I could have said anything else, but no, I played, even though I hated it. That's where my mind was at. That's where I was at as a sophomore in college. And like I said, that was one of the first days I landed on campus prior to classes starting. And as the weeks passed, I saw Pedro all the time. I wound up getting a job in our dorm at our front desk. So it was the best as far as social scene. Oftentimes I would see Pedro passing through on his way for a meal to the cafeteria, the dorm cafeteria. And I got to know quite a few people in that quad, those 4 dorms that year because of my job working at the front desk. and I got to know Pedro's roommates. But my sophomore year, a couple weeks in, I did the exact same thing in college that I had done in high school. I reached out to the track coach and said, hey, I would like to be on the track team at university. Do you have room for me? And they said, come on over. We'll see what you're capable of. But I've never been an athlete. I like to work out, but I'm a solo girl. I am not a competitive person at all. I like going to the gym. I like hiking. I like riding my bike, but I am not a team sport or event or competitive type of a person. So being on the track team when I was in high school was just something to get my dad off my back. It wasn't something I did for me. All I know is at some point in time, I started going to track practice 7 days a week. The best thing about being on the track team was walking around campus and even coming home on the weekends or on break wearing my jerseys and wearing my track uniform because it was bragging rights. I had been groomed, after all, that bragging rights, status, title, achievements, and materialistic type superficial things were important. So of course I was proud of myself because I could say I'm part of the university track team, women's track team, and that was something pretty significant for me. So my social life exploded that year. I was so flippin' busy. It wasn't even funny. I had classes, track practice. I had a phenomenal social life. I had developed quite a friendship with Pedro, and it was kind of advancing as far as like we would have a lot of conversations in the lobby of our dorm. We would meet up. I would purposely go down to the lobby and sit in one of the lounge chairs to study, hoping that I would run into him. I worked at the front desk and I would watch for him all the time. And I had started going out occasionally with my roommate, who was the partier. And like I said, my social life exploded and everything was happening at once. I was very, very busy. So one night, probably about 4 weeks before Christmas break, before semester break, Pedro and I were having a conversation in the lobby one night, and he says to me, what are you doing Friday night? And I thought, yes, he's going to ask me out. And that's all I wanted. And it didn't even matter. I can't remember if I had plans for Friday night or not, but it didn't matter to me. All I wanted was for him to ask me out, even though I didn't know the guy. And honestly, looking back, what did I like about him? He paid me attention. He was nice and paid attention to me, gave me some attention, seemed interested in me. So why not give interest back? Just want to throw that in so you see, this is what's happening at that time. This is what I was thinking. This is how I was feeling. I didn't care who it was. He was paying me attention. He could have been a psycho. And I would have been like, yeah, let's go out. I mean, I was very lucky. Let's just put it that way. And in terms of not having any devastating events happen to me in college, when so many devastating events happened to my friends, I was very fortunate in college when I was such a stupid, young, ignorant woman. And I told him nothing. I don't have any plans for Friday. I'm thinking he's going to ask me out. He's going to ask me out. And how many times have we been around this block already in my life where I'm like, ooh, he's going to ask me out? No. He goes, well, my church youth group is going caroling at an elderly home Friday night. If you're interested in going, we're taking one of the passenger vans from the church. It fits like 15 people and there's only like 10 of us signed up so far. So there's room if you want to go. And I thought to myself, are you freaking kidding me? Christmas caroling with a church youth group? But I was like, willing to do whatever with Pedro. And I honestly thought that was a date. So I said yes. So Friday night rolls around and I had gotten dressed up a little bit, went down to the dorm lobby and was kind of waiting. And I wasn't really sure, like, if Pedro was going to meet me in the lobby or if the van, if someone was supposed to pick me up or whatever. So some guy comes down through the lobby and he says, "Are you Ann?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "I'm Pedro's roommate." And I hadn't met this roommate yet. He said, "I'm going caroling with you guys." His name was Neil. And he goes, "Pedro will be here with the van in about 5 minutes, so we might as well just wait." And I said, "Okay." And already I'm like, ugh, this is not what I thought it would be, because Pedro's driving the van. That stinks, because now I can't sit next to him unless I sit in the front seat. I mean, all of this is going through my head because I thought it was a date. Not 2 minutes goes by and Pedro pulls up in the van. Neil and I go outside, and Pedro's just sitting there in the van with it running, and Neil and I jump in the van with all the other people. And Pedro didn't get out and open the door for me. He didn't give me a special hello. He just said hi to me and Neil, and then everybody in the back, and we all introduced ourselves to each other, and I didn't feel special at all. It was like a group of 12 people, and I was like, oh, man, now we're going to go sing for a bunch of old folks. And I just was like, this is not what I hoped it would be. Whose fault is that, right? As a side note. So we went over to the retirement home, though, and I actually really enjoyed it. I loved singing to these elderly folks, and what pleased me more is that they enjoyed it so much. Those elderly folks were so appreciative, and they were so sweet. So when it came time to leave after about, 45 minutes or so of caroling, I had a smile on my face. I felt good. And one of the girls, I think her name was Dawn from his church youth group, she and I got along really well, and she and I kind of paired up and went around with everybody else, kind of split up too into little groups. And then we were as one group, and it was really cool. So at the end of the night, when I got dropped back off at the dorm with some other people, I was like, that was really fun, even though I was still kind of disgruntled that it hadn't actually seemed like a date. And right before Christmas break, our relationship hadn't advanced in the direction that I would have wanted it to advance. It was kind of dead and stale in the water. And so one evening in the lobby of our dorm, I was sitting down there, and I had been in a real funk, disappointed that things had not advanced with him. And so when he came through the lobby and he was going to go sit at the piano to play, and I was pouting like I would pout when I don't get my own way, he comes over and he says, "Hey, Ann." And I go, "Hi." And he's like, "Everything okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I'm behaving in a very immature way, trying to get his attention. And when he came over and noticed that something was wrong with me after I kind of gave him the cold shoulder and was moody and pouty with him, he sat down on the couch next to me and he's like, "What's up? Is everything okay?" And I'm like, "Well," and so finally, because he gave me the time of day, I was like, I turned to him and I was like, "I thought we were kind of getting close, and I mean, we're getting ready to go on Christmas break, and I get the feeling that I'm not going to hear from you on Christmas break, and I guess I kind of want to know where we stand. I was under the impression that you liked me," and I kind of put it out there, like, what's going on? And he said, "Well, I think we are pretty good friends." He said, "I don't think it's advanced, really. I don't see the point of it advancing because we're so different. Our belief systems are different." He said, "But I really like you, and I know you like me, and I don't see any reason why we can't be friends." And he was talking in a very matter-of-fact, mature, respectful, responsible way. When I think back on Pedro and who he was as a person, I appreciate the fact that he did try to be very respectable towards me and treat me well. But he was very clear with me. He was like, "I'm not really interested in a romantic relationship with you because we are just so different." And I was like, "What do you mean we're so different?" I didn't get it. I was like, we'd enjoy the same stuff. We like music and we like singing, and like, what is the problem? And he goes, "You were raised Catholic and I was raised Baptist. How would we raise our kids?" And I went, "What?" So my jaw hits the floor again. And I'm like, "You're talking about having a relationship and having kids, and I just want to go out on a date. I just want you to give me some attention. I want you to make me feel good about myself. And you're talking about raising kids, and I don't even know if I want to have kids. And so I was in this place over here, and he was in this place over here. So from a mature man's standpoint, he's going, okay, this is a woman who is probably not a good candidate to be a partner for me for life. So what's the point of having a romantic relationship with her? And that makes sense to me. Why would you waste your time? However, at the same time, there was that neutral ground where I thought, we didn't even have the conversation. You don't even know if I'm a practicing Catholic, and by college I wasn't. So it kind of burned me, and my nose was bent out of shape that he would presume that we would have polar opposite opinions about how to raise kids as sophomores in college when we hadn't even had that conversation yet. We hadn't even gone on a date, like how to raise kids and stuff like that. So then I'm also way over here as far as immaturity level goes, because I don't even know if I want kids yet, and you're jumping to the nth degree. All I want is a little date, a little attention, a little something, something. And I'm thinking, this guy's nuts. At least at that time, that's what I thought. I couldn't even comprehend where that conversation came from. So after that conversation, I was like, I'm glad we're still friends. This is great. I'm glad we had this talk. And he felt the same, and he went his way and I went my way, and I was over Pedro like that. So then by that point, it's Christmas break. We come back from Christmas break. I start partying. My girlfriend from my hometown was dating this guy that went to the university where I went to, and he and his friends had an off-campus apartment. And she came down one weekend and stayed with me, and we went over to a party at their apartment. And that is where I met Harold. The first time I met Harold was at a big table of people playing cards, and I was wasted. He was there on an invitation from another girl who was a friend of his from her hometown, which was 2.5 hours away from university. And so there were a lot of new people that didn't go to university at this party. And so it was a nice opportunity to meet different people from different areas. And I met Harold at that party. We sat next to each other playing cards, and he was so cute. He was a dental hygienist with blonde hair, tan. He was wearing a gold chain, I remember, and he had like a big gold ring on his finger, and he had a beautiful smile, and he was just very good looking. And I remember being yet again flattered beyond flattered of his attention towards me. And I was flirting with him, and he was flirting with me, and I could not believe my luck that this guy was flirting with me. And as the night progressed, he began to kind of single me out as someone he was very interested in. And we really hit it off that night. We spent a lot of time together, and he was in town for the whole weekend. So the next night, me and my girlfriend stayed in her boyfriend's apartment that night after the party, and we just crashed there. And the next morning we all went out to breakfast, and then we went back to my dorm to shower and get cleaned up and stuff. And then we gathered together again the next night for more partying. And it was, just a bunch of laughs and a bunch of good times. And me and Harold got together again, had lots of conversation, lots of laughs, lots of drinks. And we went to the bar, and we were all dancing. And by the time the night was over, he had given me his address and his phone number and said, let's stay in touch. And I had given him my address and phone number at school. And from that day forward, around about midwinter of my sophomore year in college, me and Harold were a couple, an item, but he lived 2.5 hours away. So it was a long distance relationship. We would write letters back and forth, and we would make phone calls. And within probably a couple of weeks of establishing our relationship, I started to get very disgruntled with him because he would say, I'll call you tomorrow, or I'll call you on Thursday, or you call me. And I would call him on my designated day and time, and he wouldn't be home. So I'd leave a message. I wouldn't hear back from him. I'd wait by the phone, and he wouldn't call me back. He would call me back like 2 days later and say, oh, I got your message. How you doing? How was your weekend? Blah, blah, blah. And we would talk, and I'd be like, wait a minute. Then I would say, you said you were going to call me on Wednesday night. I waited for your call. I stayed home to get your call because we had this prearranged and you never called me. And he'd be like, oh, yeah, I went out with friends, or, oh, I forgot, I was busy. And so very early on in our relationship, there was an issue with him not being and doing what he said he was. And this drove me nuts. And I always felt like he was cheating on me and flirting with other people. And I didn't feel confident in our relationship. I was kind of like, what are we doing? Well, one weekend, he sent me a dozen roses. And then a couple weeks after that, Harold told me he was going to come into town and he was going to stay with me, if that was okay. And we were going to spend the weekend together. And the only problem with that was that I had a track meet on Saturday and he would have to occupy himself for a couple hours. And he was like, yeah, I'll go with my other friends there at that university and we'll go find something to do. And he said, if we can come see your track meet. And I was like, yeah, you can come in and spectate. So the weekend arrived when he was supposed to be coming into town. And he said, he had told me that he would be there at such and such time. And he said, let me take you out to dinner, dress up nice. And I said, that sounds great. I was so excited. And I got dressed up, dressed to the nines, did my hair, my makeup, and everything like that. And proceeded to wait for him for 45 minutes. He said he would be there at whatever time, 7 o'clock, and by 7:45 or 8 o'clock or whatever, he finally arrived. So we got ready to go to dinner, and he took me to a fancy restaurant, like expensive restaurant. And he ordered a bottle of Dom Perignon, which if you're not familiar with Dom Perignon champagne, it's like I don't know, back then it was $100 bottle of champagne. And I didn't really know what we were celebrating. And I thought, my gosh, what is he dropping $100 on a bottle of champagne? But here, he was flattering the heck out of me, love bombing me. And I thought, this is the schniz, if you know what I mean. I was all over being spoiled and all this attention from this fancy man. And so the next day I had my track meet. So I got up, got ready, went to that, and it was pretty much an all-day thing. Harold did show up with his friend, and afterwards, when we were leaving, she was carrying roses, and I was like, you got her roses? And he was like, yeah, but they were yellow roses. He had gotten me red roses. She's just always talking about how she never gets flowers and she was feeling sad. And I was telling her about how I got you flowers, so I bought her roses too. And I was thinking, that doesn't make me feel very special if you're just buying roses left and right for everybody. But I reasoned mine were red and he had gotten her yellow. So, of course, I made excuses yet again. We never had a physical relationship, thank God. And then Sunday, when it came time for him to leave, we had gone out to breakfast and we went to the store to get a couple groceries for the week for me. And he bought me a fish. He said that this was a special gift from him to me. I needed a pet for my dorm room. We got a little fish bowl for it and some rocks, and it was so cute. It was so special. And back to my dorm, said goodbye to each other, have a safe trip back, blah, blah, blah. And he left. And the rest of my sophomore year, we were an exclusive couple. Can you guys see what has been transpiring now in my sophomore year? First with Pedro, now with Harold. By the time I reached sophomore year in college, I still had not developed or gotten a grasp on how to handle relationships, romantic relationships. I still didn't know how to handle men or what my self-worth was or how to not settle for second best and how to set my standards high and what boundaries were. And I had no idea how to reach for the stars and reach for and work for what I deserved. I had already been down this road so many times throughout high school, got to college, went down that road again, in particular in sophomore year with Pedro and then with Harold, and I was still dating Harold by the time I left sophomore year in college. Now I'm getting into my summer between my sophomore and junior year in college, and Pedro actually comes for a visit with his friend John to my hometown. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Stay tuned for the next video where we finish off with Harold and I tell you all about Todd. There's only 2 more boys to go. I appreciate your time. I hope you're getting something valuable out of this. And at the very least, it's entertaining. All right. Take care, you guys. Bye.